Hi, Michelle. This is Dr. Jen Hammersmark, and this is my final, video presentation for our class, course synopsis video assignment. And Dr. Jen Hammersmark, who happens to be 60, I don't know if you can see that. Yes, there was a little party for me. And I only bring that up, well, first of all, because I got spoiled rotten, but also because I just think it's actually an important part of who I am. I think being 60 and taking courses is an honor. I know that not everybody can afford the time or the money or the energy to do that. And it's just something that's super important to me. I love learning. I love learning new things and learning about the Indigenous history. Oh, okay, maybe got more than I bargained for. Okay, let's see if I can set you up there. All right, so I'd like to start this presentation with a land acknowledgement. Excuse me for the old eyes. I acknowledge with gratitude the traditional territory of the Sinixt, the Sahil Yach, the Tunaha, and the Secwepemc nations, and all Indigenous peoples that call this place home. I know that doesn't, to me, it doesn't even scratch the surface how to honor peoples in land that were here for thousands of years before us, and how cruelly that was taken from them. But the acknowledgement to me means that at least I have a beginning of an understanding of that, and that's an important way to start my project. So let's dive in. So from what I understand in the assignment, you want to know, I'll go back to my beginning notes. Sorry, not quite as organized as I thought I was going to be. Basically what I learned, what does it matter, and how can I carry this learning forward? I think I'm going to have a hard time squeezing this into 10 minutes, so I better start talking faster. What I have learned is that the white colonial settlers decided just to take whatever they wanted from the Indigenous people in order to have the land to call their own. And they did that at atrocious ways and at great cost to the Indigenous people. And then when they didn't sort of give up that easily, which is part of what we learned by watching what Louis Riel did and how they tried to do the resistance and fight back, was then they started stealing their children and putting them in residential homes, taking away their language, their culture, their hair, whatever they could to try and de-Indian them. Terrible, terrible. But what I loved learning about the ways in which it happened is it really helped me to understand, I think, how simply something can be so terrible. It can start small and end up really big and go on for hundreds of years under the radar. That's the other thing that I've learned as well, is that I was taught very, very, very little in history class growing up. And even some of what I taught wasn't even honest. It was outward lies. And that is disappointing to me as an education system in Canada. I don't know, I guess somehow I had fantasized that the rest of the world did worse things and had worse atrocities, and I don't believe that anymore. I think, unfortunately, human beings are kind of maybe cruel and take what they want the way they want, and that happened here in Canada as well. The things that were super important to me that I learned was how people way back when were speaking up, back to 1922 when Dr. Peter Henderson Bryce, the chief medical officer, wrote the paper, The Story of a National Crime. I just loved that way back in 1922 he was outing the white settlers already and saying how badly the Indigenous people were being treated. It's too bad that he didn't have a bigger voice and that he couldn't have stopped things back then. But man, I admire that bravery. I hope to have that kind of courage to stand up at moments where it's important. And on the same vein, learning about Harold Cardinal, only a 24-year-old lawyer who wrote The Unjust Society, which actually caused the Canadian government to abandon the white paper, which was pretty amazing. Not that that's changed a ton of stuff yet, but it certainly did, do a right-hand turn real quick at that moment, and that was really cool that he did that as well. And so when I think about that, it leads me to the learning about allyship. And I know I've said this already in my other presentation, but I am forever grateful for having chosen that topic, having researched it, learning about the Ally Toolkit, which I will keep at my fingertips as well. Just all the ways I can be an ally. I can say something out loud in a public conversation that will spark conversation and maybe have people think differently. I can use my own land that I have in a different, more respectful way to make sure that I'm honoring the many, many peoples that have walked for generations before me on the land before I got the privilege of being the caretaker of it at this moment. And it also is changing my future as well. And this is actually something that's coming up. I had no idea why I was taking all these Indigenous studies courses, except that I wanted to learn and I wanted to find out more about our history and more about the people. But what ends up happening is I end up getting a job offer to go work in community on a reservation in Quesnel every other week. And I've just accepted that offer a couple of days ago. So my allyship, I think, is going to happen in a bigger way. I'm scared to death, to be very honest with you. I don't know what being in community is going to look like. I don't know. There's a part of me that might feel maybe even a little unsafe. And I don't want to feel as well like I'm coming in to swoop in and help people, because I always know I learn more from my clients than I give them. So I just want to go with an open heart and an open mind, and all of the learnings that I've gotten, the wonderful videos that you've showed us in class, the books, First Nations 101, the Embers book, have been amazing. And I continue to read more books as I get my hands on them. The Tanya Talega's latest book, The Knowing, really helped as well. And so all of that's going to really help me when I'm going to go work in community. So, and the connections that I've made, I'm really hoping that between myself and Rodney and Jerry and just all the people in the psychology club, Victor, that I can also reach out and get some support when I have questions about working in community. I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'll hopefully try not to make as many if I am always being curious and asking questions and getting support from other Indigenous folks. I would also like to say, as part of my project, that's definitely how I'm going to carry this learning forward, and that will be very visible in my thoughts, words, actions in the future, as I've already said. But I also really appreciated learning about critical thinking. It's not like I hadn't heard the phrase, and didn't know what it meant, but I really loved how it was honed in that think about something like from I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong, or we're both right and we're both wrong. And to me, as I've started to think more about that, it helps me to see both sides and try to critically think about who is being represented in this article or this news media post that's happening, or, this amazing article that I'm still quite astounded by from the Globe and Mail about the slavery that happened through the Hudson Bay Company. And again, I had no idea, and I feel very shocked to learn about how they used them as slaves and how they took women away from their families and called them their own country wives and had more kids with them and then tossed them aside when they were done. And again, it's hard stuff to learn, but I also think it's super important because it's definitely going to inform how I think, how I talk to people, and it already has informed how I participate in discussions, and hopefully from the bottom of my heart it will push me forward to become the best ally that I'm capable of being, because that's that's what I'm going to do with this. And that's super important to me. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for being an amazing teacher and having an open learning environment. Thank you for all the materials. And I love having access to the video links and everything else that's been provided and afforded to us. So it will not go without a lot of serious thought and intention moving forward in my life in the future. Thank you.